on YouTube. I would say in 2007, 2008, really until about 2012, the internet economy is what I would call a novelty economy, meaning the content that became successful on the internet, whether it was a viral video like Chocolate Rain or Soulja Boy or Chris Crocker or even Gangnam Style, tended to be something that was novel, that was arresting, that deviated from what people normally saw. And there was kind of that circus aspect to viral content that YouTube in the early days was very much a part of. I would say that the internet has changed from a novelty economy to a loyalty economy, where once the platforms became smarter, they started to have algorithms that paid attention to audience behavior and how long you keep the audience watching, does the audience return. Now the platforms very much reward loyalty and getting people to come back and watch a 10, 15, 20, 30-minute video. Insofar as how my content has changed, I would say overall, short-form content, novelty content that gets someone's attention for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, that's kind of out the window now. You really have to, at least especially on YouTube, Facebook is very much a platform that works like this, create content that keeps people coming back. So longer form vlog content, 5-minute videos, 10-minute videos, and I'd say some of my content reflects that. I've also spread out to other platforms like Twitch, Discord, gaming, things that
Well, you have a podcast now, too, don't
I
you?
do actually have a podcast. It's called Chocolate Pains, where we interview influencers, and that's kind of the other end, because that's very long form. Those are 35, 40-minute, hour-long episodes. And that's kind of, although the podcast economy has kind of been this fairly stable thing, that's kind of, it's interesting, and there's a lot of question in terms of how that relates to social media, because that's been one of the most consistent things.
You can look at a podcast as a brand building experience. Once you've established a brand like you have, I've had a podcast for 10 years, consumer technology, which is a nice sideline. And once you get a single sponsor, you're golden. Any money after that, you're in a great position. And we get about 20,000 downloads a month, and I love it. Joey?
So when my content first started out, it was pretty much the same thing as I'm doing now. I did skits and pranks back in the Vine days, got a quick 1 million followers on there. I saw the Vine was going to go downhill, so I jumped ship, went over to YouTube and Facebook, immediately had viral hits, like 100 million view videos, was all over the news. And from there, it kept me going up. The YouTube and Facebook, you're always going to have your ups and downs, but you always got to adjust to the new algorithms and what they want. So my videos 3 years ago were 2 minutes long, 3 minutes long, and they would get a quick 50, 100 million views. Nowadays, they're 10 minutes long, the videos. They'll get like a fraction of the views, but they make like quadruple the money per view, and the watch time is through the roof.
Since you're all about the money, Joey, tell us how you use hashtags.
I don't.
You don't?
No.
And why is that?
YouTube, I think YouTube just added hashtags recently.
Would you use them on Instagram?
Instagram, occasionally I'll use them in the comment section just to help categorize the video, but Instagram is like the platform I care the least about because the monetization on there isn't as stable as YouTube and Facebook, because you need to get brand deals, so I don't care about it.
So Alex, you're building a community online.
I am,
A little
yeah.
bit different. So tell us what you're doing.
So basically, mine started out just as a personal page, and then, like I said, I'm also an actor, so I was cast in a show called Magic Funhouse on a platform made by AT&T called Fullscreen, which has since pivoted and no longer exists. But from that, there was a big YouTube influencer in that, and a lot of his fans came over and really liked my content as well. And at the time, I had just given up ballet, I had just discovered yoga, so my content was a combination of just yoga stuff, personal stuff, and just casual friends. I was not curating it in any way. And then once the platform shut down, I was like, oh wow, I have this huge audience, but it's not really sustainable to continually create content about acting because that's so dependent on other people. So I was like, okay, what am I doing every day that I can kind of curate and I can self-generate that's unique. So I figured yoga stuff makes sense right away. I'd already been approached by a couple brands for brand deals and sponsorships. And I was like, okay, great. So why don't I focus my Instagram on this yoga path, and then I can really leverage my audience to make a positive impact. So while with any pivot or any shift of your brand or any rebranding, there is going to be a change in your followers. Like I definitely saw a dip towards the beginning, but my engagement has stayed the same. So that actually means that my engagement rate has gone up, which has made me more appealing to potential sponsors and brands. So I think that the most important thing is finding something you can self-generate continuously that you're passionate about and that is relatively unique.
And you know, even what we've seen here is we've seen some different paths. Like Tay started in one way with Chocolate Rain, and he built onto that to build a community. Winnie has a business. She was on to meet new people, get new clients. I was there to get readers and personalize my brand. And Joey is there for the money. He's there. Money comes in a lot of different ways. We all have different passions. And my passion is helping people, and I know Winnie's is, and Tay's is, and yours is with the yoga. So, Mike, you're the CEO of Tiny Sponsor. Why don't you tell us? Because you started a long time ago, too.
Yeah, I mean, so as a creator, I created on my own, under my own name, more for fun. But whenever I've done any kind of purpose-driven content creation, it's always been for a brand. So I was very early on in the marketing world. I had an agency around 2001, kind of grew it from there. And a lot of the brands that I was working for, they were either local businesses, they were a lot of restaurants occasionally, food brands. They eventually got me into Kogi Barbecue, and I started doing a lot of content for them and the digital strategy there as well. And I also started a media network that was around anime, film, and gaming. Along with, we had 3 sites, and so for 2 of the sites, the anime and the gaming one, I built the content channels on YouTube, on our blog, and et cetera, and podcasts and mobile as well.
Well, Mike, don't be modest. Kogi Barbecue, their fame, food trucks, Kogi was one of the first food trucks, was totally based on your marketing plan. So I think you need to tell us a little about that, because that was huge. You pretty much born a whole industry.
I mean, we're credited with starting the modern day food truck. I actually gave a talk once, and I was like, yeah, food truck, the new kind of food trucks, the one that use social media and they're branded and they go around town, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that's what a food truck is. And I'm like, no, there were roach coaches before 10 years ago. And so that entire campaign, that entire brand was really based on seeding very specific audiences through key influencers, bloggers, community members, putting together a brand that was really well defined, that had a very specific purpose, and using a platform that matched that purpose. So in our case, it was Twitter, because we needed to tell people where we were, we needed to communicate and have a persistent community that we could build that, 10 years ago, we didn't know where we were going to be. We didn't have any really money to build any other platform, and we needed a way to connect with all of our audience, even when they weren't at the truck. And so Twitter, as a tool, as a social media channel, fit that role. It was mobile, it was push notifications, it was all that good stuff. And then the brand itself was very purpose-driven. And so, we use it to drive our content match very key reasoning. So either we're letting the audience know where we were, communicating the menu, activating people to show up around certain areas, and then building a culture through our community on a persistent platform, which was the continual conversation on Twitter.
Well, and in those days of food trucks, they weren't as welcoming as they are today. I remember Kogi Barbecue would pull up somewhere and they'd have to move. And I remember getting the shout-outs on Twitter. Oh, we've moved, we're at this corner and this corner. And everybody would just run out to meet them. And it was a brilliant marketing plan.
Thank you.
So Winnie, in which platforms do you specialize? And what do you do each day to build your brand?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, my industry is really heavily regulated, so not all. I wish I could play in some of the more fun platforms, but pretty much I stick to Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and sort of in that order right now. I think LinkedIn's becoming much more interesting to us now, more than ever, because we do have a daily video series now on it, and we've seen that traction. I wish we could do more on YouTube, but in my industry, we can't comment. We can't respond. We can't accept comments. So it's really hard to be social on a platform.
You
when
can't talk
be
about
social.
finance at all,
Yeah, I can't really talk about the things that people really want to talk about. So,
which is genius on your platform because you engage people and get them to give the financial message by asking them questions.
yes, I create platforms for people to answer questions. Like Marsha, I have I think the largest business tweet chat, which is every Wednesday. We average 150 million to 350 million impressions per hour. We trend about 80% of the time. To give you an idea of how big that is, that exceeds most of the television shows that I'm involved with. Some of the best shows, the biggest shows on TV, we actually get more impression count on our tweet chat than television shows. So that's been that's been a really fun experience.
Well, one of the things that Winnie does with her tweet chat, which is a brilliant thing, given her limitations in what she can say, is she involves everybody, anybody, someone with 2 followers, no matter how many followers, if they make a good comment on Winnie's chat, Winnie responds. It's an interactive chat where she's building an audience of real people. And the real people then tend to care about her, visit her other platforms like WP Wealth Group. What's the name of your company?
Yes, my company's name is sungroupwp.com. So I don't discriminate on followers or size or wealth. I discriminate on kindness. So as long as you're nice, then you're good enough in my book.
I think kindness is the new byword, I think, should be for social media. And since we're going so quickly on time here, Winnie, how do you build your following?
Well, I think it's obviously hard. The first 100,000 followers is always difficult. It's gotten better now that we're at this size. But it's really you hug someone, they hug you back. You shake their hand, they shake you back. So the first step is obviously to be kind to someone else first. So I do follow a lot of people, and people is like, well, why do you follow so many people? I'm like, because you should, and that's how we do
Well,
it.
because
right?
it's kind, and you never know who that person is going to be in 10 years. And long-range branding is really important because you never know where someone's going to be in 10 years, and they're going to remember Winnie Sun. Whoa, I remember Alex. He was that guy with yoga. I want to know more about yoga. So if you've got a plan for your brand, just building your audience and responding to people is a huge...
Highly profitable too. I just want to put it out there because a lot of people like, well, in my industry, people are like, how much money can you really make on social? Well, just like a few months ago, I signed a $40 million client. So, yeah, that happens more often than you would think.
Yeah, it's not always the money you're making on the platform. Dish Network is the sponsor for my podcast. So it happens. It builds your own brand. Tay, you are a star in that. So you've mentioned which platforms you specialize. Tell us a little about what you do on those platforms, and what do you do every day? Do you post every day, or do you plan every day? What do you do to build your brand?
Wow, I feel like the premise of that question presumes that I'm much more responsible and superhero-like in maintaining my social media than I
Well,
actually
we've got
am.
plenty of time. Just keep going.
I think the real confession is that I've tried to stake out my brand on every platform in some form, even platforms I'm not particularly big on, whether that's Snapchat or Instagram. I try to take Tays on Day, and it's an iterative process, and each platform has its own rules, its own grammar, its own process for building a community on that platform. And I guess I feel like more of a platform generalist than a platform specialist in that regard. LinkedIn, like I'm present on most of the platforms, but I think that it's constantly a state of iterating and figuring out what works on each of those platforms. Because what you can't do is just have one piece of content and say, hey, this is going to work on my Facebook, my Instagram, my
Exactly.
Twitter, my LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera.
And I think you've noticed you have, Tay, a different audience on each platform, or a different
Absolutely.
type of people.
Yes.
Which is why that cross-posting does not always work, because they want different things. LinkedIn might want a business slant to it, and you need to take the same picture and write a different paragraph. So it's a little more complex, but what do? Do you plan Do you have a grid for your things, or do you
No,
have calendars?
I've never been good at that. On my podcast, we interviewed Jacqueline Glenn, who's an influencer, and she spoke 13 words that really stuck with me. That, I don't want to be a brand. I want to be a person. And in some ways, that's always in conflict because you even see, because a person has good days, they have bad days. A person is not a machine who's always writing SEO perfect social media posts. And I think you even see that in the way prominent brands present themselves in social media. Like you'll see Wendy's on Twitter, maybe making fun of McDonald's or pretending to be offended by White Castle. And more corporate brands, Nike, et cetera, are kind of diving into this sense of, it's okay to at least try to seem like a person, have dimension, have positions, have opinions.
I think, Tay, they have to work harder to look like a person because they have a staff of 6 people working at all hours. So I know I do my own, Winnie does her own, you do your own, and it's more about a personal message from us to the community. So do you plan topics?
No, I know. I guess, I guess it's just kind of maybe I fly by the seat of my pants more like that, or maybe I'm still finding out what that brand is. I think the other things, like if you do entertainment, if you work on camera, if you act and voice act in any capacity, your job is literally to convince people that you are somebody else, that you are stepping into another role, and so. There's also kind of that question in terms of branding. Like there are some very successful actors who don't do social media for that reason because it kind of prejudices how you might be perceived on camera or
we
in the
don't
work that you
really
do.
want to know what some people are like in
No.
real life. We're in love with their brand and their image. And they better have somebody to portray that image on social media or they're going to lose fans. Because like if Bradley Cooper came out after the movie and was more like his character in the movie, it wouldn't have worked out really well. It's true. It's very hard, and you have to be real. What I do on Twitter is the night before I go to sleep, I schedule a day's worth of posts through Buffer, and they would be links to stories that I have read that have to do with the topics that my community is interested in. Then I come in twice a day, I answer, I talk to people, and I respond. So that's the way I do it. Joey, tell us what platforms, clearly, do you specialize in, and what do you do each day?
So I specialize in YouTube and Facebook. Instagram I only use to slide into girls' DMs because I'm verified, so it makes it a lot easier. But that's the only use for that platform. YouTube and Facebook. See, unlike some of the guys and girls on up here, my content has no niche. It's comedy, prank content. It's just random viral content. Like I can get 1 billion views in a year, no problem.
So can you describe what is your random viral content? Go through a few of your posts.
Just an assortment of pranks, but I guess the most viral ones would be like showing how easy it is to abduct a kid at a park, and scaring parents, or showing how easy it is to get date raped at a bar. Like those social awareness videos, those are my most viral ones, but the pranks are just like random stupid stuff, like running up to someone trying to fight them. When they want to fight you, I just pull my pants down and they run away. Like just random stupid stuff. There's just no niche market on that to sell any product to. Like you can sell yoga instruction videos. Like if you have 100 people watching, you sell yoga instruction videos, you can make $1,000. Same thing with you could sell financial advice if you have 100 people watching. If I have 100 people watching, I got to rely on making 10 cents from the YouTube ad revenue. So my goal is to get the views, and that's the only way how I'm able to be profitable. So that's, yeah.
How do you plan your viral pranks in advance? Do you do it daily, weekly? Do you keep a calendar?
So I try to film 2 videos a week, and I only post 1 a week. So this way, if I want to go take a break, I have a back catalog of videos already ready. And back when I was my most viral, I would sometimes look in the news and see what's like a trending topic. Like I did one on breastfeeding. It was trending because one of those shows during like that moms watch, like during the day, were talking about it, and it was becoming a hot topic. So I'm like, oh, let me do an experiment on it. I did it, and in like 3 hours, I uploaded the video. Like,
You were breastfeeding?
I wasn't breastfeeding. I can't do that.
That would have been really a viral hit.
Yeah, but I made the video, had it out the next day, and in like 3 hours, I think it had like 8 million views on Facebook.
Well, you know, I think this is an important point that anybody can relate to. It doesn't have to be Joey's particular platform. What is trending? What is happening right now? If what is happening right now relates to your audience, to what people are looking for, and you can twist it into something that people are interested in, well, I'm sure, Alex, you could have had something to do with breastfeeding that you could have tied into it.
Potentially.
Anything else, Joey?
There's nothing else. It's just, if you're in a niche market, it's good to build the community because that's who you're going to be basically banking and profiting off of. Someone like me, there's no point of even having a community. I mean, it does benefit, but from the financial aspect, there really is very little benefit compared to having a niche.
So it's not worth it to you to respond or follow back? Or...
I do. In my spare time, I'll just have fun with like the hardcore fans. Like sometimes they'll find my Xbox profile and I'll just play Fortnite with them. Just for fun. Not for any financial
Community
gain
building.
from it. Yeah, just to have fun. And they
Okay.
tell their friends and like word spreads and then more and more hit me up. So yeah.
Alex, I want to know, what platforms do you specialize in? What do you do each day, and how do you plan your outreach? Tell us by platform.
Yeah, so I primarily work through Instagram, but I'm also working with a company called Vigo Video right now, which, if you don't know, is just a short form video platform, like 15-second videos with cool filters and effects and stuff like that. So for that one, basically, because that's sponsored, I have to meet certain requirements. That's like part of our negotiation. So what's great about that is I'm just creating yoga content that's 10 to 15 seconds long, and I have pretty much whatever control I want. So what's great about that is I can shoot quite a few videos in one day and then post them throughout the week as long as they're a little bit different from each other. And that's pretty easy to generate that content because I'm always doing yoga anyway. I'm always at the studio, so it's like, why not just film it, just have anyone who's nearby, or like if I have a friend who happens to be a photographer, like awesome. But worst comes to worst, I can just like set up my phone on a block and just shoot it myself. As far as Instagram, I do put a little bit more into that. As far as every day, I definitely don't post every day, but what I do try to do is I go onto Instagram every day and I search through the Discover section, and I try to find content that I would like to emulate with my profile. And then there's that feature where you can save it and you can put it into different albums. So I do that, I save them and put them into different albums based on whether it's the photography I like, whether it's a really cool yoga pose, or if it's the caption that I love. And then that way, because when I am curating my content for Instagram, while sometimes I make it myself, lately I've had enough interest from photographers and friends who dabble to get better looking photos if I work with them. But then the issue is, okay, if I'm working with them, what if I show up to this photo shoot and then I have a brain fart and I can't think of any yoga poses, or I like can only do 2 that moment. So then I can pull out my Instagram right then and I have a whole catalog of inspiration, which has been super helpful. And then also as far as captions, that helps get my mind thinking like, what are people really responding to? And I can see how their users interact with them. And I can also target what I want to do based around that research, I guess, that I'm doing. And then as far as curating my content visually, because Instagram is so visual, I just do it in the draft section of Instagram, but I know that there are a bunch of different apps that you can use as well to kind of plan out your grid. And I just work in that very simple style of like 3 photos that are visually similar, so that then throughout the week, by the end of each week, my profile is reset if you look at my page. And that's not a hard and fast rule, but just something that's like fluid so that it has a similar visual identity, I think.
You know, it's great. And I'm on The Real Alex Deal on Instagram right now. Couple of things. I just finished, as I said, writing a book for real people. So I've delayed being verified because I'm verified on Facebook because I wanted, and Twitter, because I wanted to be another regular person as I did screenshots. And I'm looking at Alex's page, and he uses emoji in his bio. You can't do that successfully and put hard returns when you're using an iPhone. It's very difficult. Also, clickable links within your bio on Instagram can be done via Android or via desktop, but won't work through an iPhone. You can't put in the hard returns. So consider, if you're on an iPhone, going to someone. Alex, are you on Android?
I'm on iPhone.
And how did you do your bio?
They actually have it in the profile section. If you just put the website in the link, in the website
Not
link.
the website. I'm talking about the hard returns in your.
You can copy and paste it. So if you do it in
Copy
another
and paste
program
it. Got
with
it.
the hard returns,
Oh,
you can paste
yes.
it into it. It'll
So
give
would
the
you
hard
give that
return.
advice, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of any kind of platform or profile, everyone kind of touched upon really three things that I look at when I'm looking either as at an account as someone who's a sponsor or creating a brand myself. It's really understanding like what the platform you're on and why you're there, and whether that platform enables that mechanism, behavior, or purpose. It's going to be then figuring out who you are as a creator. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I posted these videos or these photos that got really big, but they don't know actually what defines their content and what defines who their persona is online. And if I look at any account, I can usually break down all of their body of work into like 3 to 5 generalized post types. And you guys touched on a couple that you guys, like you said, you stock up certain kinds and you have ready to go, and same with Joey, and everyone does that. But to have a very conscious definition of what those things are, and knowing the regularity of that, and how you, what it does, like how it engages your audience. And then the last thing I think is going to be is engagement. It's ultimately every social channel is social as a community. So one of the best tips that I've heard is from Sarah on the internet, who works with Tiny Sponsor, and she treats her comment section in her Instagram as a forum and moderates it and engages with it, and she's able to curate a much higher value community because of that.
Exactly.
And that's all the foundational stuff. And then on top of that, it's a matter of, okay, being relevant. So knowing, if you know who you are, why you post and you engage with the audience, you'll know why they follow you. And then just being on top of those current events, like Joey was saying, is knowing what's trending and whether or not it's relevant to you. And if it's relevant to you, then do it. If it's not, then don't. Unless you have a casual account, that's a meme account or something like that. But outside of that, like, those are the fundamentals. Those are going to always stay true to delivering growth, whether or not the algorithms change or whatever, because you're beginning to then own and define that community and your following, regardless of the platform that you're on.
Well, and going back to Alex's Real Alex Deal, the Real Alex Deal on Instagram, I have to compliment your bio. It's beautiful, it's engaging, and by putting emoji within your bio, it just spruces it up. It's so much better than just a bunch of letters. Do you ever think of doing a short video in a pose and asking the people watching the video to do it with you and see who drops down first?
Ooh, I haven't thought about that, but I love that
Oh,
idea.
let me know when you do it. I'm gonna do it at home with you.
Oh my gosh, I definitely will.
I think that's a great idea because it's engaging the audience. So, Winnie, what is special about your content? What do you think it is that makes people want to connect with you on social media?
Well, I guess I'm kind of lucky in that way, in that I think what makes my content unique is my industry is not very user-friendly and isn't warm and fuzzy. And so I'm one of the few that is out there in my industry actually talking to people rather than just taking your money and
Or talking at them and doing blog posts. Mm-hmm. You do a blog post, but you engage with people about it.
yeah, so I think the main thing is in my industry, I think I'm probably generalizing because there's a lot of nice people in my industry, but as a whole, because we are all about managing money and what we manage for you, it's less about what I'm doing, it's less about giving, right? And I think, at least with my brand and what I develop on social, it's about how can I share this knowledge with you, but then how can I help you, and how can I be real, and how can I talk to you? And people are always shocked that a financial person actually does that, and because I'm on TV, it's even more rare that happens.
Exactly. And when I first started, it was rare that book authors would actually talk to the people that read books. And it worked. After social media started in about 2007, I've sold 2 million books. It's not bad. And I really say that social media had a lot to do with that because people who didn't know me got to know me. Now, Tay, we know your voice is what's incredibly special. But
Oh,
what
wow. You
little
should be my
things-
publicist.
No, it's fabulous. But you've done certain things in your videos, like I remember the keyboard. That was fabulous. What do you do to keep your content fresh and make it special?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I feel like there's, to some extent, and you know, authentic is such an overused buzzword in LA in the entertainment industry.
important.
Everyone's saying, hey, you need to be authentic, you need to be real. But I feel like, at least in my experience when I hit my stride, and when a lot of other creators I've met hit their stride, there's something about uniqueness that is self-evident. Like, it's hard to describe, hard to like, but you know, there's a something.
Well, Joey is definitely unique in
so-
a different way than you are. But your uniqueness.
No, because for me, it's part of the problem. Like when I did YouTube videos, people would look at the video and they'd be like, "Oh, is he doctoring his voice? He's using effects." And then people to this day meet me in real life at like the checkout line at Target, and be like, "Oh, that's your real voice. I thought it was an effect. I thought you were like you're actually like this in real life." So in my particular case, there's always been that hurdle of non-believability. Where the content that I post online, it's like, we don't know if that's an act, is that like, whereas when people meet me in real life and face to face, there's kind of that, oh, wow, he's not faking that. So I don't know if I've ever really resolved that in the content I create on social media. There's always that distance, that sense of, I'm not a point of reference that a lot of other people have met in their life experience, whether they're a casting director or just an everyday person. And so that's that can be a double-edged sword. Sometimes it's good to be unique. Sometimes it makes it more difficult to articulate myself as someone that can fit into someone's preconceived notions of a story or a brand ambassador or something that can be of value to their life.
Well, I follow your stream, and you do jump around a bit, but I think your jumping around a bit is a really smart strategy because you're reaching different people at different times, and
Yeah.
you're engaging new audiences.
Though there's also a risk to that because
Yes.
whatever you post on social media, people assume that that is you forever. That's the entirety of who you are. And so range is something that social media has not really figured out how to cope with because you can get the revolving door of people who like one tweet or one post or one video and then they subscribe thinking that's all who you're going to be because that's what the platform teaches them to consume, monolithic brands. So having range is kind of at odds with the way platforms work today.
And how many followers do you have on YouTube?
A little bit over 1 million.
I know. I'm proud of you. I'm proud that I know him because he's really smart. Now, Joey, what's special about your content? We kind of know, but let's hear some more.
I don't think there's anything special in it. My content's so easy. It's like almost anybody can do it. You just got to come up with the idea, and anyone can go out and do the type of content I do. Like, no one can go out and do the content you do. You use more of your brain in your content. I wouldn't be able to do it. You use your body, and I wouldn't be able to do it. But I feel like anybody here can pretty much do exactly what I'm doing. It just comes down to like the idea and how you execute it. Because it's
Joey, then what you're saying is you're authentic. I hate to admit it,
guess so.
but you're doing your core because this is you. The person you are out there as is you.
yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
so.
we just found your authenticity.
I could not do a prank about date raping. I'd be arrested.
No, I got
Like, there's some level of talent in being able to at least commit to that and be liked by people to the point where they let you do the prank. So.
I have contracts
Well, I've had
that say I
people try
can't
to
talk
sue me.
about stuff like that. So,
But it's like, I mean, like, it's like, it's easy to do. Like, if someone has a drive to do it, they can easily just do it. Like, I don't have, like, any unique talent. I guess my only skill would be just coming up with an idea that would go viral. But at the same time, people, 90% of stuff they see on the internet that is viral is stolen from someone else who already went viral. I mean, I've done it sometimes. It's happened to me sometimes. You can't come up with an idea, just go browse the internet. I'll look up what else is viral, then I'll change it up a little bit.
but
and
you
some
do
people
it
do it
better.
to me.
You try to do it better than you've seen.
Yeah,
before.
you just improve on it, make it better. So I guess what makes my stuff unique is that I'm able to get I get like 1 billion views a year between all my platforms. So I guess that's what I do better than I guess my competitors in the same genre that I'm in.
And it is a distinct genre, but you are authentic.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And now I want to hear from you, Alex. What is it that's special about your content that makes people want to look at your yoga versus others?
Well, I think from my posts, the first thing that draws people in is I'm really, really flexible. So I can do like some crazy poses that a lot of people are like, I don't even know how a human body can do that type of thing. So that usually draws people attentions right away. And then I think what keeps them coming back is that luckily my niche, people are super into mindfulness. So if I just kind of wax philosophical on something mindful, or like it can literally be related to the post, or it could be just related to anything else in my life. I don't think that would necessarily work for other niches or other things, but
Alex,
it happens
I
to...
so couldn't do that. Every time I try to be mindful on social media, I'm just like crossing my eyes. I can't do this. But you do it so well.
Thank you.
And that's right from your heart?
Yeah. I would say basically, although maybe some of my things come off deep, I've found that trying to be deep doesn't really land. It's more just if you like can really think about, okay, what are the things I'm going through right now? What are the issues I'm having in my life? What are the patterns I'm perpetuating over and over? And then how can I interrupt that pattern and start to develop a new one that is more fitting? And that always is relevant, and it always comes in different iterations. And I feel like just speaking about it in slightly different ways lands with a bunch of different people, kind of like every day.
So you are authentically mindful.
I'd say so.
There you go. Mike, what have you got to say? What's special about content that you have put on the internet for clients?
I think it's, authenticity is definitely the theme, but it's a little bit different than, because brands, they don't necessarily have a single human being that's saying, this is how I feel today, right? So there is this idea of perceived authenticity, which is developed by this idea of being aware of where the brand is in relation to the audience, and also understanding where the audience is and what they're going through, and finding a way to relate to that through some similar shared value. So it's not like, the Kogi truck isn't feeling, extra frisky one day, but it's like, but that might be what's the community, the cultural vibe is at the time, and you try and key into that. So a lot of that comes back through engagement, through monitoring, through having a very distinct voice and knowing what those key values are, despite whoever's writing for it, right? So the idea of you create those frameworks as a brand and try and make it personal. Like you should never, the brand itself, the brand channel should be a platform for your audience, for your community. So one example would be, we had, with Kogi, we had a songwriter who wrote a kind of fun song, name-dropped Kogi Barbecue in it, and so we posted about it, we responded to it. But not just like, oh, thanks, it was like we engaged in the same style and same aspect of how he presented to us. And that resonated really well, and that became a platform for him, because then our audience saw that. It added more personality, we adopted that from our community, and we kept that cycle going of like
You brought
engagement
up
and
a
adoption.
really important point, and I think most of our panel could agree that listening to your community is important. Hear what they want, what they're the most interested in. If you do the metrics, you'll see it, but if you just listen and then adapt to where your audience is going, I think it makes for a much better integration of your social plan.
There's a trick there, though. It's not just listening, but it's knowing what to pick and what to push
Right.
out. So another example with Sarah on the internet is that, she is a female on the internet. She's very attractive. She has a lot of fashion stuff and beauty. And there's a large element of a negative male element that are in her comments. And so she actively, aggressively bans and will combat that type of engagement, that negative engagement in her community. So it's not, and then reinforce the positive engagement by all genders. And so the idea is, it's knowing what to adopt from community, what to bring into the brand. And your account, whether you're a person or a brand, you're a platform. You're a soapbox, so to speak, right? And so knowing what elements to put up on that stage and what elements to push off is really critical.
Exactly. So the last question for the panel, and then we'll, if you have questions, you can ask them. Where do you see you and or your brand in 10 years? That's a tough one for me. If I'm still around, I'd like to still be writing books. I'd like to sleep later. I'd like to spend my mornings talking to people on social media and then write a little bit. I get joy out of doing that. I missed my social media this morning and I kind of feel sad. But I promise to hammer on it as soon as I get back. So Winnie, 10 years from now, where are you going to be in social media?
This is such a crazy, crazy question because in social media, things work by the hour, not by years.
That's right.
But,
you'll be here 10 years from now.
I don't know about that. Hopefully, I'm in an island somewhere. But in all, but in all honesty, I mean, the most exciting thing that's happened in my business the last 2 years is that my clients have changed significantly. Meaning that my new clients that I'm bringing on board now are big social media influencers. They're businesses that want to do social. They're like celebrities that want to do more. And what's interesting is now having this sort of knowledge of building our own personal brands, now I'm actually sharing it with them and helping them build out their brand. Because I always say, like, in the financial industry, it's really about me, right? Like, you come, you bring me your statements. You come, you give me money. You come and you pay my fees. It's all about me. At what point did it become about you, the client? So when I started learning more about social, I said, this is an aha moment for me because now I can bring on a client and I can teach them I can set them up with a deal with QVC. I can introduce them to QVC. I can tell them how to set up a store at Amazon. I can put them in contact with a big brand that I know who's a friend of mine and actually make them money. And then I'm truly bringing value to my clients. So I think I'll do more of that next 10 years. And I think at some point we'll start to give more of this value out to more people, and more people will benefit by having more wealth here in the United States.
So you'd probably, if the island comes into question, you'll still be doing the same thing because you really enjoy it.
I
and
do.
you'll do it from the island, sleeping late.
Yes, and my kids will probably be on
They'll
on
be grown
TV
up
then.
and gone. They're gone. Tay, 10 years, what's going to happen?
Gosh, I'd love to do so much. I'd love to host a game show. I always joke that Alex Trebek or Pat Sajak.
You'd be great.
I would love to do that type of role. I'd love to act more on camera. In some ways, I'm held back by looking a little bit young right now, because I'd love to play roles of authority, like the chief of police, the governor, the president, etc. I'm 36, but I don't look it. So who knows? Social media-wise, it's just such an open space. But one thing I have noticed is that you kind of come up in a social media cohort, at least in the entertainment industry. So the people who became well-known on YouTube around 2007, 2008, 2009, that's kind of my entertainment cohort, whether that's Rhett and Link or the Fine Brothers or such names. And as they go on and do other projects, I find that tends to be the social circle from which I get additional work, and as they do additional projects, we're kind of the generation that moves forward and does things. So that may reflect other people's experiences in social media too, where the people who you're close to when your platforms are growing and when they hit their peak, you kind of ride with them and figure out what your future is.
I can see you're enjoying being in the game, too. Joey, how about you?
In 10 years, I'll probably be retired from making content myself. But if I went back a year from now, the way things have changed so much when it comes to business, things not outside social media, just outside of myself as a personality, making money off of my content. I think I make majority of my income now based on my management company that I started, managing other influencers. So using my knowledge, passing it on, my connections, passing it on to a newer generation of influencers. I think that's where my 10 years from now will lie. Getting out of, I still do it because it still makes me a good chunk of money, and I need to have my name out there because it looks good for my other businesses to be the personality. But yeah, I think in the future, 10 years from now, who knows, I could be still doing it just for fun. But
Do you like it?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
not all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You obviously do a great job at it.
Thank you.
And teaching people is one of the greatest rewards as you go ahead. Well, Alex, 10 years from now, where are you going to be?
I'm gonna have a house. I'm gonna have a husband and a kid. Just kidding. I will hopefully, but that's not related to this. But if you know anyone who's looking, let me know. And yeah, in 10 years, I'd also like to be doing more acting. But as far as this stuff, I'd like to change most of my teaching over to online platforms, whether that's partnering with a great brand that I totally believe in and I support their mission statement and it really aligns with my own mission, or whether it's creating my own type of platform. I'd really like to expand my yoga teaching and really utilize this ability that we have now to reach like such a wide platform rather than just teaching classes exclusively for up to 30 people, which is also great and really valuable, and I don't want to stop doing that entirely. But what a great opportunity to reach a wider net and spread more of that positive message.
And you have a passion for what you do.
I do.
And the good news is, you can take it from me, as you get older, those yoga poses, you'll still be able to do them.
Thank goodness.
Mike, 10 years from now, where are you going to be? An island?
Actually, hopefully not. I lived on an island for a couple of years, and I think I'm good with that.
Right? You went crazy, right?
I get so crazy. 10 years from now, I think what I want to be doing is hopefully Tiny Sponge will have grown. I think there's a big gap in this idea of someone who creates content, a business who needs audience, and a consumer. And I think that a lot of the existing models that we have, and even a lot of the platforms that exist, and the new ones that are coming up, aren't really, they serve one but not the other. And I think there's a really good balance that can be struck in creating an environment where, you know, you can really directly at a high value reward someone for their content on a high value per audience, not just like on some, you know, how many likes did you get, how many followers do you have, but like on some like really substantial, meaningful
Well,
value.
numbers are not everything.
That's
Quality.
Totally. And so giving quality compensation for quality content, but then allowing and enabling that creator to really just dive deep in what they do best. And then have that be not just sustainable, but something that you can thrive on without being that 0.01% celebrity that gets really big. And so trying to figure out and hopefully achieve a system or enable something like that would be what I want to be doing.
Yeah, more brands need to learn that these
Yeah.
people know how to reach their audience. I was once offered crazy money to do 4 tweets. Now, it was disingenuous and the whole thing, but hashtag ad. I did it because it was crazy money and they let me spread it out. But normally I don't whore myself out for those kind of things. But in the end, if a brand wants to partner with you and they will listen to you and they know how you relate to your audience, it's a big win on both sides. So I think one of the things we've got here is we've got a group of amazing people which at the outset looked like they had nothing in common. But when you got to hear from them, there's passion, there's authenticity, there's a love of what they're doing. And I think those are the keys to your success in branding. Does anybody have questions for someone? Yes?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on something that Kay had said, which was when you have several talents and the social media platforms generally want you to focus or just really hyper-focused on one type of audience. And so I was actually going to ask Mike, what is, from your perspective, if someone is multi-talented, and for instance, I have 2 Instagrams, and they each have their own following. I think it's just tiring to try to maintain 2 separate personalities. How can somebody bring those together and still be valuable to a brand or be able to express themselves in a way that that works just as well as someone like Alex and Etsy?
Yeah, I think if you look at where, especially the younger audiences and a lot of the newer platforms, TikTok and some of these other ones, there's people are known for one type of content, but they're not just one type of content. You're seeing that more and more as some of these platforms become more distributed. Even with Instagram and some of its algorithms, they're starting to they're starting to allow an account to be aggregated for multiple topics of engagement because they're really focusing more on engagement, less on topical stuff. And so I do think there's a limit to that in the sense that 3 core topics is probably going to be, relevant to a specific audience, and the minute you go beyond that, you're going to lose some of your audience, right? Because some people follow you for one thing, and generally speaking, people follow you for an expertise or a view or a style or an approach that's unique to you, and that's you want to keep that relevant to all of your content. So, for example, I do very curated food and travel photos, but a lot of what I do is, and sometimes I'm in some of them, but I'm not mostly in my own photos. It's more me presenting a view of the world that I see that's very stylized. And in that sense, the overarching element is culture and my framing of culture, even though it's really differentiated topics. So really figuring out for you, I would still say do one account, but make sure there's a common thread across your types of content. And a lot of times, because you are a person doing multiple things, there are other people, no one's just one-dimensional. So a lot of your audience, usually the things you do together will also have overlap with people that like both things. So if you're like doing yoga and fashion, let's say, for example, there's a lot of probably lifestyle overlap there.
Right.
So just figuring out what that common thread is and being able to weave it together across your content in a very balanced manner is what I've seen work the most.
Because I've been doing what I've been doing for so long, I'm the top e-commerce writer, big deal, in the world, they say. So that's an important thing for me, but if I did that 24/7, I'd probably shoot myself. So I got into technology. So technology is part of my mix. I don't post a picture of a telephone all the time. I may talk about what's going on in technology. I was a top influencer at the Consumer Electronics Show. That's another thing for me. And I have a phone sponsor that sponsors some of my work. And I'm also into other things, which is why on my one Instagram page, I say, this is my life, because people come to me for different things. So consider building your brand in those areas with blogs or video or however, and bring it together in your social media stream. Right there. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you.
So 2 years ago, I wrote this comedic song, and I posted it on YouTube. And then a few months ago, a YouTube star took the lyrics from my song, and his find out it went viral. And I contacted her to try to do a profit share with it. And then I got a letter back from some other order saying that I should just be grateful for the social media love. And
Can you help her, Tay?
what can I do to parlay that into something that is, beneficial and also for, I don't even know how I get to the digital space, but to do something with that?
So,
Well, can Tay answer that?
Yeah,
Because
actually,
he's had
yeah.
this issue.
I mean, I'm not an attorney, so I would preface that I wouldn't give any legal advice, but I would certainly speak with attorneys who deal with issues of, copyright, trademark, et cetera, and, get professional opinions on that.
I can tell you, as someone who's had pieces of my books appear in other people's blogs, and I have an online scanner that finds these chunks of my books. Legally, the only thing you can do is have it taken down. And it would cost you a bundle to pursue it, and probably nobody has made enough money off of it that it would be profitable for anyone except the lawyer.
you could also build, if it got that viral, publish content on your own, get articles, get interviews around you as a writer of that to elevate your visibility as the writer of a
That's
viral
right.
song. And then maybe collaborate with other YouTubers to hopefully replicate that. So even if they don't endorse you, you still wrote it, and so you can claim that by creating external content that shows that.
One more question, we're getting the hook. Anybody else? Back, yes. Lady there, long dark hair, yes. I think it's incredibly important. And I hate to say it, because there's a lot of times, I don't want to take that video because I have to put on makeup. It doesn't get easier the older you get. But it's true. But And my new book has 14 tips of taking a selfie for people over 40, which is an important thing. So you need to be the face of your brand. I think Winnie will agree with that, do you?
Oh, definitely, yeah. My business partner is way better looking, and so I'm like, well, why don't you do it?
He is handsome.
He is really handsome, and he's like, no, I don't want to do it. So therefore, a company has to have a soul, and without a photo, you have no soul. So nobody really wants to follow an egg or an app. They want a person. So whatever happens is you have to. I guess you become successful when you're able to share more of yourself into the world. It's your look, your personality, it's your heart and your soul.
And
then
you
you'll be a
live and
brand.
die by your own mistakes, and you'll make mistakes.
I would just caveat that with, it doesn't have to be your face, it has to be a face, meaning every brand that generally has a type of face, whether it's yours or another one, there has to be an existing face that is not just a brand logo that stands out.
Although there are successful educational brands like Life Noggin,
Right.
And whatnot on YouTube that make a lot of money, and they don't have a particular face they put out. They just make educational
You
content.
know what I was told by one brand like that? No, we won't be promoting you because you cannot be bigger than our brand. So watch out for that when you're negotiating with somebody to do work on social media.
I actually think there's one benefit to not having a face on your brand. I know Screen Junkies on YouTube, for example. The guy who created Screen Junkies, he wasn't really the face of it, but he was one of the main players in the show. And he got hit for I don't want to do you remember what it was? It was sexual assault claims or whatever, some crazy shit. His name was tarnished, but the show kept going on because he wasn't the sole face. He wasn't the
You
the
mean
only
like
guy.
Roseanne, right?
Yeah, similar to that, where one person get booted off. Well, I mean,
Yeah, allowing it to scale beyond just a person
I think
is
Roseanne
important.
still went out of business.
But it's maybe a face, so it doesn't have to be a person, but it could be some persona that is, independent. That has to exist, but it doesn't have to be a person per se.
yeah.
Well, we have
or
to
a group.
move, and a new panel is moving in here. We're really getting the hook. So if you want to talk to any of us, I think everyone would be glad to be outside and answer your questions. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope we've been of help.